All right, welcome back to the Crash Labs. Today, my guest is a very, very special guest. This is dream realized for me. None other than Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary. Welcome to the show, Kevin. It's been a long time. I've always wanted to talk to you and ask you about your perspectives on things, and particularly gold. So without further ado, let's kick it off.
Okay.
So, times are tumultuous, chaotic. We've got a new world order maybe establishing, the pulling apart of the old way of things, transitory period. Gold reigns supreme, at least in my books, during these times. That's been our investment philosophy. And obviously we're into silver, we're into copper in the hard asset world. What's your take on everything going on right now, Kevin? I mean, does the U.S. come out on top? That's one question. And number two, what's your sentiment on gold?
Well, let's take the creation of the vol you're speaking of that drove gold. I've been a 5% allocation weighting in gold for decades. I use bullion, UBS bars, 100 gram and kilogram bars. I pay for the storage. That's for 50% of the positions because I never sell those. And then I use various financial instruments to rebalance on a quarterly basis. Obviously, gold's been a phenomenal performer the last 24 months. We both know that, and gives reason for why, you do want to have a position like that, even if, you can wait a decade for gold to run. But I also have done something else because I realize a lot of people don't know how to buy gold. I mean, they still don't. And a lot of people use coins. So, I know this is shameless promotion, but I formed a relationship with Universal Coin, guys that have been around forever. I trust them, so I buy coins from them too. So, I like to throw the coins around on the kitchen table with the kids and all that stuff, particularly the currency coins that are wrapped up. So that's gold, but let's talk about why gold ran. So there's two verticals of naysayers on gold that started 5 years ago with Bitcoin, okay? Mm-hmm. And the whole Bitcoin thing, you don't need gold, it's digital gold, yada, yada, yada,
Pet rock.
All that crap. But the thing is, I still have some Bitcoin, but Bitcoin, and the reason the whole crypto thing has really taken a back seat to gold in the last 24 months is this. Most institutions, and I'm talking sovereign wealth and pension money, don't own any crypto at all. I know people like to think they do, but I work with those guys. I index for them. They don't because their compliance overlayers don't allow for it. You can look at Norway, you can look at any country, UAE, US, whatever. They don't care because it's not compliant. And then along comes this act, the Stablecoin Act, which clears last year. That was the big event in 2025. Got some money center banks interested in digital payment systems and some institutions looking at it. And that was their first foray in because that's legal now. And then this Clarity Act, which got a lot of excitement in December. Now here's where it goes off the rails. It doesn't pass last year, the Clarity Act that would have given a designation to Bitcoin as a security or commodity. I don't care which one it gets, who cares? But it would get that and it would allow for an allocation. So if you're an institution running, let's say 500 billion, and you say, I'm going to put 1 or 2% weighting into Bitcoin, you would be ready to go. Or crypto in general, because the act covers all of crypto. You already have your 5% weighting in gold. You might own the miners, you might own the bullion, you may own the GLD, it doesn't matter. You've owned it, and you own it, and generally they're allowed to own up to 19% in gold if they want. Usually it's around 5. Okay. I'm giving you all this detail because I've done a lot of research on this. So they're all hot to trot in end of December to go in and allocate. They're assuming that the act's going to pass. But when they started their analysis, when you're just a junior analyst and your boss says, okay, set me up for 5% weighting in crypto, go tell me what assets I'm going to need. And you do your homework. You're not emotionally involved in any of it. You don't care. You're just looking at the numbers. And the numbers tell you this. 97.2% of all the volatility in crypto come from two assets, just Bitcoin and Ethereum. All the rest is poo-poo.
Yep.
And so you got 10,000 poo-poo coins. They all correct back into the year, 80, 90% down, and they never came back. Because everybody figured out, wait a second, even if the Clarity Act passes, we don't need the poo-poo, we just need the Bitcoin and the Ethereum, and that's it. And so it's been a bit of an air out of the tire situation on crypto. Meanwhile, back at the farm, those of us that own gold are watching all the craziness in the world saying, yippee-i-o-ki-yay, am I ever loving this asset class this year? And of course, some of us are forced to sell down, below 20% or even a 5% weighting. And there's been a lot of volume in the ETFs.
Well, it's fascinating for me. I just feel like I've been sleeping easy. I don't like what I see around the world. I don't like what it means for the average Joe. Purchasing power is going up in smoke. Debt seems to be uncontrollable. It looks like they're spending money. Every government, everybody is spending ridiculous amounts of money on ridiculous things, and probably some good things too. But I can't seem to tell the difference. Right now, it's like watching the Titanic sink from the yellow brick road with my silver slippers on, and I'm sleeping like a goddamn baby. Well,
that's one way to look at it. I tend to look at it this way: where there's blood in the streets, there's opportunity. I've always been a chaos opportunist, as I call myself. And so I look at things, and I'll give you an example. In the last 48 hours, Trump goes over to Davos. I'm used to Trump now. I don't hate him or love him. I don't care. I've been working with that guy for 18 years. We came up together when he was on The Apprentice and I was starting Shark Tank. We met through Mark Burnett. So I know how he works. He's full of bluster. He says outrageous things. But what you have to do is listen for the signal. There's a whole ton of noise and there's a signal. And so let me give you an example. Yesterday's speech, 2 hours, whatever it was, in Davos. It was the same speech he gave a day before stateside about the successes of administration over the first year since he got inaugurated. But he went off piste for about 6 minutes and gave us two little bombshells, which I immediately reacted to. Number one, he talked about how he's losing the race to Chinese power. The Chinese are building more electrical power on their grid than the U.S. has. The U.S. hasn't built any new power because it's laden with permit problems. You just can't build anything there because of the previous administration's power policy. They only wanted green power, as you remember, and those policies have not yet been removed. And so the reason you care about that is you earlier mentioned, I think you talked about Bitcoin more than AI, but AI is here to stay, and the Chinese are developing it very quickly because they have a lot of data centers. So Trump said he's going to accelerate the permitting. He's going to make it, instead of years, months. And he talked about coal-burning plants that make electricity, which the Chinese have. They did 500 gigawatts last year in 12 months, of which 100 was solar and 400 were coal-burning, no permits. Supreme Leader says, put it here. You got 18 months to put it there, or if you don't do it, you'll disappear. That's very motivating for management. And so there's none of this wait for Congress or wait for the local authority or wait for anything. You just build the plant. And then he said, same thing for nat gas and for nuclear power. Nuke power won't be around for decades, but nat gas. So that got me hot to trot. I immediately took another, it's actually 13,000 acres of land. I won't say where yet because we don't have the permit, but we have a really big business now trying to identify acreage in any geography in North America that has stranded natural gas. We've announced 13,000 acres in Alberta, Canada. We will announce an additional 13,000 stateside. And when I say that, not to be outrageous, but I will control more acreage that has the availability of permits with stranded natural gas than any other hyperscaler developer in the world. It's a big statement, but it's true.
Well, that's an incredible strategy.
Yeah, but I'm just listening to the big guy talk, and he's telling me, hey, and the other thing I did, which let's not forget that little dissertation he gave on the Greenland stuff. I mean, Greenland was like the story for 48 hours. And first he talked about invading it, and then whatever, yada, 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 all the noise. But really what he was doing, as we found out late last night, was to come to an agreement where he could put in early warning detection systems, very advanced detection systems, on the land available around the ice. So now he's got his detection systems in Alaska, that's the east. And so this is the dome, he's calling it, with Golden Dome or Defense Dome or Iron Dome. I call my dome the Dome of Desire. I don't know what he's calling his dome. But the point is, he's got the west now with Greenland, but he's missing the middle. You can't do this without Canada. Now, Canada and the United States have been going at each other. The speech 12 hours earlier with Carney, he warned Trump of a new world order. And then 2 hours later, Trump tried to wash his mouth out with soap, saying, "Don't say that, Mark." To me, that signaled the beginning of a very wonderful negotiation. And I went long the Canadian dollar last night and bought more this morning. And this is going, because he can't do the dome, the defense dome, without Canada. So one way or another, those cousins are going to kiss and make up, and you're going to be the way the best liquidity on Canada is own their dollar. The previous administration, the idiot king, Trudeau, decimated the dollar, took it from parity or almost parity down to down 38% or something. It was nuts what he did. But he's gone, and the Freeland minister was part of that. She got whacked, so they're both gone. And the new Carney is now, ready to go at it with Trump. But if you're an investor, you don't. That's noise. Of course, these guys have to get together. These kissing cousins are going to get together, and you benefit owning energy, land, and the Canadian dollar. So I'm pretty happy with the last. I mean, I had no idea we were going to have this perfectly in sync with so much change on policy. But there you have it. That's my new investment thesis, and I've been busy as a little Canadian beaver.
Well, I appreciate the. Let's start with the AI bit, which I think is really interesting. So there's a couple of key reasons. One, we've got sovereignty on this data centers in the emerging, market of AI, and it's very important. It'll be important to all Western economies to have some control over their data centers and the computer crunching power. Now, one of the interesting things, I actually had a friend. This was a couple of years ago, so I've been looking at this space for a while. And we were talking, and I've talked about it on the podcast before. I had Pierre Lassonde on here. We were talking about, so my friend has a royalty company out of Calgary that's private. And his whole business mantra was hooking up these stranded gas plays, their dry gas plays with the data facilities, these data crunching facilities. So basically, you bring in a gen set, you rig it up to the dry gas, bing, bang, boom, you've got, X megawatts and you've got your facility, and there's nothing else out there other than, cow patty pasture and these stranded gas plays. So Alberta seems to be a pretty lucrative place to look for land. And I know you won't mention where you found it, but I know that, in the Permian Basin, there's some too. Alabama, I believe, Louisiana, maybe upwards to Texas, etc. But I know certainly in North America, at least, one of the key destinations here is Alberta, and Danielle Smith's government has been pretty pro enabling this type of stuff to happen. So it's pretty interesting.
So Danielle Smith, I took her down to Mar-a-Lago last November, almost a year ago, so we could meet with Trump and talk about energy strategy for North America. She took a lot of heat for it, but she's much better off now, obviously. She has 6 trillion cubes of stranded nat gas. So we've disclosed where our land is. In Alberta, we have 13,000 acres in what we call Wonder Valley. And it's in a remarkable place. Grand Prairie, and great town, great hospitals. I mean, it's got people there. We're going through the permitting process. We're engaging with the indigenous tribes and bands there to make sure that this is something they want to do. We have tens of thousands of jobs to make available. We're going to spend over probably the next 12 years, $70 billion US on it. So it's a massive facility and can go up to 13 gigawatts. It's one of the largest campuses on Earth. And she's at the center of that because she's got the gas. You're right. What I haven't, and the reason that I haven't disclosed where, my U.S. lands are is because I didn't know about the path to permit the way Trump laid it out yesterday. That's not policy yet, but I'm going to Washington next week to get more details on what the policy is going to be on path to permit. And that means that we can get the turbines up and running within, 12, 18 months, which is going to change the game for data centers. And so you really need, the whole thing about AI, it's not, people think it's the chips and all that, nothing to do with it in my view as an investor. It's the power contract. Can you get sub 6 cents a kilowatt hour? Where in the world can you find that? Because my first project was upstate New York behind the grid on Niagara Falls. It must have been 8 years ago. And then we got all screwed up with permits in New York. No, you can't get anything done in New York. So we left 20 million in the ground probably in New York. And we moved it to Norway. So Norway has huge hydroelectricity, sub 4 cents a kilowatt hour. And Finland has nuke power, sub 3 cents a kilowatt hour. So we bought, my thesis was buy the land, we can get the permits, you can get the power, get the fiber, get the water, get the air, and just be shovel ready. So that investment was private, recently went public, it was called Bid Zero. So I own land now as a shareholder in Bid Zero in Norway and Finland with sub 6 cents a kilowatt hour power. And I'm agnostic to whether you're a Bitcoin guy, you can come and lease the power from me with containers, you got it. Or you want to build a data center, you got it. You need power, you got it. Come to Big Daddy. That's what the management's saying at Bid Zero. And that's been my best performer this year. It went public, I think, late December or early January. It's been my best performing stock. And so you are 100% right that you go to the power first. This guy doing the stranded nat gas in Alberta, sheer genius.
Yeah, by the way, he clips a royalty for hooking party A up with party B. He gets the permits and he gets that. And he worked in oil and gas forever, so he can secure the gas contract long term.
He's right. He saw where the puck was going in the old Gretzky analogy. That guy is very, very smart. But it's all about the power and the lowest cost in North America. That's Danielle Smith. That's Alberta. It's number uno for the lowest cost of power anywhere in North America.
It'd be interesting to see too, is that whenever the whole blockchain first kind of started up in that big first wave, everybody was looking for the cheap power. I remember Iceland was a destination as well with all the geothermal. And they were trying to get in around 6 cents or 4 cents, something like that. Quebec was on the radar screen, but Quebec's been offloading a lot of its power for green coupons to the, ever since the Obama administration and beyond, for a lot of these, offsetting the other energy types to be kind of on side with the green agendas. And it'll be interesting to see now with Trump in office, maybe those states back away from needing to buy that green power from Quebec. And maybe now Quebec ends up in a place where it has a surplus of power and can get it to market a lot cheaper for not only Quebec citizens and businesses, but, I think it was flirting with, I want to say around 9 cents. So, but if a lot of that demand for the green power comes off from the States, then, we could see prices go down in Quebec, and that could be a good
9 cents, even Canadians, not competitive. I've had countless calls from, listen, I was born in Montreal, Canada. I'm also an Irish citizen and a resident of the Emiratis, just to be transparent. So the story in Quebec is you can't get a permit. So it's not that they don't have what's needed. Here's what you need to just build a gig 4. 1.4 gig gives you 1 gig of compute because you have to have some redundant power to keep the thing running 99.99% of the month. And so 1.4 is what's necessary. You need 2,500 acres contiguous. You need water, and you need the water permit for cooling. Even in Quebec, you need water. You need 4 corners of dark fiber. So that's ultimately, you got to connect to the grid on the internet. You have to have that. And you need a partnership with, a village or a city or a town, because you can't, there's 10,000 people working on the construction over 30 months of building a 1 gig data center. They got to live somewhere. They got dry cleaners. They have to have schools and community centers and all that stuff. And Quebec, I don't know of anybody that's been able to get a permit out of anywhere there. I mean, That place is not ready for the next wave of opportunity. That's always been the case. It's really a shame. But that's not the situation in Danielle Smith's Alberta. She's just said, okay, we're going to play ball. Now, Carney, the new prime minister, may figure this out pretty quickly because he's inherited from the idiot king an economy with zero GDP growth and only 8% of their own pension plans in Canada. The Canadian pension plan that represents the Canadian people, even they won't invest in Canada. So that's crazy. How bad it got under the idiot king. Only 8% of what they manage in Canada. So it's so bad, it couldn't get worse.
It used to be like 60, 70%. Now, actually, as a free market capitalist, what do you think the solution is? Because in Australia, they mandate that 30% needs to be invested domestically. But I'm an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur.
They don't shoot themselves in the foot with stupid policy. You got to remember, it wasn't just the idiot king. The idiot queen was a woman named Christina Freeland. And I think Carney sent her, I don't know what happened to her. She's gone. She's been kicked out of government.
The Wicked Witch of the North, they used to say.
Well, the thing is, those were the two. I mean, she was terrible and he was terrible. And together they were terrible squared. And so it took a 10-year period to decimate the economy, but policies still remain. Bill C-69 up there doesn't allow for any permits on anything, including pipelines or power or data centers or anything. So it was devastating. And, Trudeau envisioned a green utopia, a kumbaya economy where everybody knitted sweaters or something. I don't know what the hell he was thinking. But that's the opportunity. And that's why I went along the Canadian dollar. The new guy, the new sheriff in town, knows he's screwed if he doesn't somehow get money coming back. And I think there's a big opportunity, this big one. With this, imagine the amount of money it's going to take to build the dome in Greenland and Alaska and northern Canada. Wow, what an opportunity!
It's an awesome opportunity. I just wanted to jump on that too because I picked up on that too when the initial deal was done with Carney with the dome, and that announcement back in the spring when they said that they would commit X millions or whatever X billions to in military spending. And towards this whole dome thing. That was really interesting. At the same time, from the mining sphere, because our company, we own about 70% of mining media worldwide too. So we got a call from industry leaders as well as government, and they wanted to make a push. And it's all about sovereignty of the Arctic. So everybody, we're talking about Canadian sovereignty over Arctic regions and how that's super important. It's your point with Trump's intent on Greenland. I think that dovetails nicely with that motive. It's pretty much well aligned. Mining is one of the best ways you can establish a presence in the Arctic. So what's up for debate is who owns it, and unless the countries that are claiming it have some sort of presence up there, whether it be military bases and installations or whether it be mines and operations, things like that. That's a really good thing. So for us, we got sort of the call to try to come up with a plan of how we were going to better communicate. Now, this is from both sides of the political aisle, both the conservative and the liberal government, because at the time, wasn't sure how that was going to shake out. But it's clear that pro-mining seems to be on everyone's tongue. And I think the rationale for that is all about this whole Arctic situation. I wonder, how other geopolitical situations sort of play into that, what we're seeing around the world right now too, in other continents, and how much the Arctic is actually an undergirding theme. Like in Ukraine, for instance?
Well, if you offered me to invest in Greenland and I knew that there was an agreement with NATO-based protectorates and the U.S. was included, and they'd worked all that out, I would be far more interested in putting capital to work there. And I think that's where the outcome's going to be. I don't know if Trump's going to buy Greenland or he's going to get so embedded in being a protectorate sort of thing, some quasi representation, maybe in governance. I don't know what it looks like, but if you get it that way and you've got NATO and the U.S. backing it, then China's not going to mess with it. My whole theory about investing is there's only two pillars, okay? There's the Chinese and then there's everybody else. The two largest economies are the U.S. and China. And so what do you want to hitch your wagon to? The Chinese guys or the American guys. Now, I know the Trump stuff with the tariffs and all this stuff, but you got to figure out what's the end game. The end game is in 5 years, not too far away. If the North American Union doesn't occur, and I'm not saying Trump buys Canada, that's never going to happen, but the Canadian market has all the raw materials that the largest market on earth, the U.S., needs. And so the kissing cousins have to get together, as I said earlier, and no tariffs, ultimately, so that economy can be the largest and fastest growing under democracy, which is obviously not what the Chinese practice. But then you say to the Chinese, look, we're really rich, we're really big, we're growing really quickly, and we have 5% of GDP focused on you with some nasty, nasty robotic AI technology that can blow the crap out of anything you try and attack, like Taiwan. Don't mess with us. That's where we're going. And so whether it's Trump in power or Carney in power, there's no other path to protecting against the Chinese. The Chinese people are great. The government, they have plans of world domination. If you don't believe that, just watch what they do. I do business there. They suck. They steal. They cheat. You can't sue them. Everybody knows that now. And they don't need permits to build power, so they're very competitive. So my investment thesis over the next 36 months is, where do I put my dough, that knowing that we got to bulk up because the Chinese only understand the stick. They understand power, military technology, and size. And that's what you got to get. And you're not doing that without some kind of union in North America. And then you got the little sweeteners, the Greenland missile base, the Alaska missile base. But the real dome of desire is going to be in northern Canada.
Well, it's interesting. The Chinese, both the Chinese and the West, let's say the Western economies, we both are seeing. I mean, it's a global market in a sense, but there's clearly resources that are playing a big role here. Whether it be rare earths and the restrictions on export, now with silver, there's been a lot of stuff going on. Silver obviously acting as both a store of value, but also as an industrial metal, with really important use cases in the electronics world, solar and other things. So like there's these massive structural deficits. I mean, some of the estimates have been like. Let me just have a look here. I have it written down just so I don't get this wrong. So a fellow went to Congress from University says, it is estimated the world will need to produce over the next 20 to 25 years the amount of copper that has been produced through all of human history, says Walter Copen, VP of Research and Technology Transfer at Colorado School of Mines. And he testified this before the House of Congress. Now, he's not the only one. You've got Robert Friedland saying in the next 18 years, humanity needs to mine as much copper as ever in the last 10,000 years combined, just to sustain a modest economic growth. So as we see the sort of electrification of the world, this call to energy, this call to AI, I can't help but look at this and say, holy shit, we need a lot of metal. And there's a structural deficit. There's a structural problem. There's not enough metal in the ground right now to do all of the things that we are dreaming are possible with where all this tech can take us. And so, from my perspective, as much as I am attracted to investing in the energy side, I know the resource side. So that's do what you know. So I'll be investing and playing that from the material side. But what's your take on that? What's your take on the energy metals and copper and these sorts of things?
I 100% agree with your investment thesis. But the difference for me is I look at the multiples where I have to deploy capital. So I know what the multiples are on juniors and senior miners or royalty-based mining. I certainly know the price of gold and silver, and I participate. Your copper thesis is dead on, 100%. But I also look at the multiples being paid for power-ready dirt and permit-ready dirt for data centers, and it's the highest I've ever seen. I'm a real estate guy. A third of my portfolio is in commercial real estate, residential real estate, climate control real estate, all that kind of stuff. I've been doing that for decades. So when I saw this, I realized, wait a second, this is just real estate with power. That's what I know, but I certainly didn't understand how complex the actual specs are for 1.4 gig data centers. So I've had to hire a lot of people that do, and a lot of partnerships with energy pipeline firms and certainly technology companies that understand how to regulate power, because it's all about the power. But I have that team now. It took me 2 years to put it together. And so we both are, I need your copper to build my data center. So we're both going to win. I'm just going to trade my data center at 3x what you're trading your as a multiple. I'm going to have more volatility, but they both work. And so, I'd argue you want a little bit of both. But this, the big investment themes are North America bulks up against the Chinese. You need copper, you need silver, you need gold, and you want gold given the vol. But boy, do you need power. And that's like, none of this happens without power. None of it, including that Golden Dome. So for me, I'm going to be busy the next 4 years. I mean, I'm just running, I'm on helicopters flying over farmland and stuff. I've been everywhere. I've been places that no one's ever gone before in the winter also. Let me tell you, there's some places in the Midwest that are pretty nippy right now.
I'm sure there is. Now, here's a playful one. I've been trying to think this one through. So in the next decade, where do you place the multiple that the consumer pays for electrons today versus 10 years from now? Where do you see that? Are we talking hundreds of percent higher? Because that's my guess is that it's going to be really crazy. Especially if Elon gets those goddamn robots working and we've got, the data centers and all this stuff. AI is everything that we think it's going to be. And the rate of change and adaptation for these technologies, I really do see a scarcity of electrons, and I think it's going to really make a big difference to people.
Yeah, but that is the investment thesis on power. So let's talk about the political situation right now. Let's say I go to a state like Oklahoma. They have 3 power authorities there. Let's say West Virginia, which has good permitting right now with backup diesel generators, and I say the power authority there, I need 250 megawatts, and I need a path to 1.4 gig within 36 months. Not only can they not provide it, they won't, because they know with certainty the cost they have to put into the grid, the CapEx will raise prices for the library, the hospital, and the residential neighborhoods 30%. So there's just no way that's going to happen. So the only path is to use stranded nat gas and do turbine technology, which is getting more and more efficient, particularly cleaner, these 2-cycle turbines. So you got to find yourself minimum 2,500 acres in the water. I talked about this earlier, but you got to find the power source. That power source is nat gas. And then you're going to get a situation where you're telling the local community, hey, I got 10,000 jobs during the build-out phase and 3,000 permanent high-paying engineering jobs after the data center is up and running. And I might even have some extra power to give back. Plus, I'll build you a community center right on the land we have. And I want to be a good corporate citizen to the community. So, we're going to show you our plans in terms of how we're going to build this power out and how it's going to work. That's how I've been doing it. That works way better than telling the local mayor, hey, want to see your electrical prices go up 30% while I'm building a data center? And he says, how about no?
Yeah, how about I don't want that? Yeah.
So that's what that's what happened in Virginia with all these really ugly buildings they built right abutting residences that raised up their electrical prices. So those days are over. So there's going to be such a giant investment in building out stranded nat gas electricity for the next decade. I'm not sure electricity, goes up 10x in value. And then just to save the day, a decade from now, the first mini nukes come on, and they're very efficient, except that the price of them is unknown right now. So the power theme we're both talking about is the best investment theme for the next 3 years, period.
I'm just playing it forward because one of the things is even if we see let's say a tripling in the cost of power, and I know you probably like solar power as much as I like solar power, which is probably as a solution to humanity's power needs. Which
it doesn't work. It doesn't work for data centric businesses.
100%, right? So we're probably on the same page there, but actually, the funny thing is, if on a consumer level, electricity does become as scarce and those electrons are as precious as I think they might be, then suddenly the independence that certain geographical areas, like particularly desert states and places that receive a lot of sunshine, there may be a case where it's really worth it to get that solar.
Well, so far it hasn't been. One of the largest ones just went bankrupt. When you take away subsidies from the government, which is basically it's a form of tax to people, solar doesn't work. Wind doesn't work. So back to the drawing board on those. I don't like business models where you're making the assumption the government always pays for your crappy business model, because along comes black swan like Trump and says, I'm not going to pay for any crappy business models. Yeah. He shuts down wind farms. He just put some policy in place that no federal permits. You can't build anything. You can't touch federal land with a wind farm or a solar array, designated acreage. So if you want to get those permits to get solar, it can't touch federal land, which is pretty well everywhere. So they basically did a side run on all the solar guys, and their stocks have been crushed. But their stuff doesn't work. That's the problem. I would be an advocate for this crap, but you got these wind farms out in the middle of the ocean screwing up the whales and birds, and what is that? Plus, nobody lives in the middle of the ocean. You got to get all those wires to come back, cost you billions of dollars, and then the blade falls off. The whole thing makes no sense to me.
Yeah, it's crazy how much we've sacrificed to the altar of climate and this climate scam, in my view. And I might be alone on that, but
it isn't really about climate, because the market is determining that, like the better hyperscaler sites right now are asking me, can we sequester our carbon? Our company wants to sequester the carbon. Okay, that's going to cost you an extra 2 cents a kilowatt hour. We don't care. It's great for us. We get to tell everybody we care about sequestering our carbon. So you're looking for a state with geographies like Alberta where you can put it in the ground and you get a permit to do that. You're just taking it right off the turbine, sticking it in the ground. I got no problem with that. I don't know. It's hard for me to understand when the Chinese are burning coal every day, everywhere, they don't seem to give a shit about the climate. And, Carney goes over there, the Prime Minister of Canada, and says, one of our pillars has to be climate. And they look at him and say, sure. They don't give a shit.
Yeah,
they're not going to abide by it. That's the whole thing about the Chinese. They'll smile at you all day long.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I don't know. To me, I'm an earth scientist. I actually studied it back when there was actually scientists studying it, and it's a tail wags a dog thing. If it's confirmation bias as well in the science, like if you really want to make carbon the enemy and search for the correlation between carbon and chaos in the climate, you can find it, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's causative. Anyway, I don't buy it. I think that we've all sacrificed enough, and we should have learned from that now. And let's just go in and embrace what we have, which is, we've got nuclear, we've got hydro, we've got gas, we've got coal. The modern coal facility of today is pretty damn clean. It's pretty damn efficient.
I don't fight that fight. I don't even get involved in that policy narrative, because I got every guy and his dog calling me for power.
Yeah.
And so I look for the path of least resistance to bring power on the grid or bring power into the data center off the grid. And if you tell me I got to sequester the carbon, I'm happy to do it. I got no problem. We are in such a wicked race with the Chinese. I do not want my children working for the Chinese government. That's the way I look at it. And I'll do everything in my power to make sure that they see that we are very scary in North America and they can't with us. Excuse my French.
No, love it. Where do you think that Europe goes here?
I think Europe goes with the North American story. I think the trouble is no one has ever had a good experience with the Chinese, ever.
Right.
they go into Africa, they plunder and steal all the resources. The country remains impoverished. Any deal they've done with Europe, they've absolutely screwed them by dumping everything in there with their overcapacity. They're not good guys. I mean, they've been in the WTO for over 20 years. They've never abided by one order. They've never let you litigate there. They use the American courts to bankrupt competitors in the United States. They list on their companies on the NASDAQ in New York and don't comply. I mean, it's like, enough, it's like crazy. So what does it take? They're not going to change. And I'm talking about the government here, not the people. People are wonderful. I have lots of people that are of Chinese descent working for me. They're fantastic. They're very smart. They're really good at what they do, and I love them. And so it's just that when the Chinese government tells you, we're going to win, and we're going to dominate the world, and that's our plan, you got to wake up and take them seriously. So I think the Europeans tag along, and as they should. Probably NATO will remain intact. I think the enemy is China with a little fringe taste of Russia. I mean, for all of the bluster that Putin has, it's still a small, shitty economy. So it's only got one asset: gas and oil. I mean, I don't know what else you want to give them, but maybe a little space race stuff. But I would never get in a Russian rocket. Forget that. So it's sort of like I look at it and say, okay, if the Chinese want to work with the Russians. By the way, the Chinese don't even like the Russians. So it's not like they don't like anybody.
Yeah, they're kind of their own thing. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm kind of eyes wide open, know what's coming, and I'll invest that way. And when I go to testify next week at the Senate, this is what I'm going to talk about.
Fantastic. Well, listen, Kevin, I really appreciate your time, and I want to respect it here because I know you gave me a very gracious, a good window to chat with you today. Is there anything else you want to leave our audience with?
No, I think you've covered it. Go see Marty Supreme. I worked my tail off, just got nominated for Best Picture. I'm very proud of that. I'm part of that ensemble. And also our ensemble got nominated for SAG-AFTRA Award on March 1st. I'm going to be looking for some new clothes for the red carpet.
What watches are you wearing? What are you going to wear?
Well, I'm going to definitely wear 2 watches, and probably I'm going to go probably Dolce. They've been dressing me lately. I love their crazy chicken stuff. This is a Dolce jacket. They did the whole Shark Tank thing
nice.
Too. So I'm going to do a lot with them. I'm talking to their representatives today for these award ceremonies. But I love all that Hollywood crap. I'm hooked. It's fantastic.
Well, I heard you did a fantastic job. I haven't seen the movie. I'm looking forward to seeing it. But I heard you did a fantastic job in that. Like you came off as a total actor. Like you've been doing it your whole life.
I've now got 3 different new scripts offered to me, so it's going to become part of my portfolio.
You're going to be the bald business asshole. And
listen, I'm telling you right now, I'm petitioning to be the new villain in Bond, the new Bond movie. Amazing. I have to do it. They're just not evil enough. I will solve the problem. I will execute much better. I'll be the most evil, bad Bond guy you've ever seen.
Love it. Can't wait.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Kevin. Thank you very much for your time. Take care.